What up, witches? Welcome to season 2, episode 3 of the What Up Witches podcast, where we embrace all the magic and mayhem of everyday life. I am Kitty. Ellie had something come up, so it is just me tonight. Let's get into it. Long story short, we will be rescheduling a little bit with me and Ellie, so you're not missing anything. I will be redoing this episode for now. This is consider it a preview for season 2, episode 3. Close enough, right? Okay. Cold-hearted witches. Because what's going on? Lots of ice, lots of cold things keeping us from enjoying ourselves like we should be this time of year. Because it is Imbolc. And I'm going to briefly go over Imbolc or St. Bridget's Day, where we mark the beginning of springtime. This is, excuse me while I click around. There we go. How do we participate in the season? So I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of details and lore and all this and that. I will kind of gloss over some of the, specifics here. One second. Okay. Sorry, thirsty. Excuse me. Okay. Winter is finally starting to melt into spring. We are roughly halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. There are many ways you can celebrate Imbolc, including by weaving the Bridges Cross. You've probably seen it. And this is to represent protection and blessings. You can also leave an offering for the goddess herself to be welcomed into your home, where she can bless your household. Leaving a piece of clothing or a cloth outside for her to bless overnight will then have the power of healing or protection when you bring it in come morning, so it is believed. This also leads a little bit into Groundhog Day, when we're going to find out if we have a few more weeks of winter or if spring has sprung based on whether or not the groundhog sees its shadow. So again, I'm not going to bore you with all of the details. You can go search into the rabbit hole or groundhog holes, as it may be, and read more about that. Next, I kind of want to talk about activism, but the way that me and my family are going to be celebrating Imbolc, which is today. And really, what that meant was I shooed them out of the house while I cleaned a little bit, while I recentered myself and figured out what I needed. And that helped me a lot as an autistic and ADHD person, that I could blast my music as loud as I wanted and nobody going, too loud. Or, mom, can I have a snack? Mom, can I do this? Mom, can I do that? Having a couple of hours to myself. Beautiful. So I celebrated by cleaning. Other people may celebrate by doing all the things, the crafts, creating the crosses, enjoying nature as well. That is always in every single celebration, especially when it comes to witchcraft. We're very nature intended. We like being with the water, with the elements, with the air, with the fire. I like to burn things a lot. So having a fire in the cold is wonderful. All these different ways are marking the last night of winter, really, and accepting and embracing the warmth that is spring that is coming into us. So you can have food, you can have drink, you can have all of these. This is the time that is associated really with spring cleaning. So this is the perfect time to get your family out of the house and do it yourself, or to bring them in and say, hey, you're going to clean your room, you're going to clean your room, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of that, and delegate the tasks of cleaning your house. This is a perfect time to get that done, because we want to welcome in the spring with fresh air and fresh enthusiasm. That was my little section on Imbolc. For the magic of activism, this is an extremely important one right now. There are knit hats you can do. There is a pattern you can purchase that is, the name is escaping me, oh my God, but the red Nazi knit hat, that the anti-Nazi one. I'm going to be doing that myself so that I can send that to a couple of friends, make one for me. And the whole point is to get out and wear it, right? Wear it at protests, wear it when you go talk to your representatives, especially while it's still cold, right? This is the time to speak up, be loud with your clothing. Joy and colors in the face of resistance is a form of in the face of tyranny is a form of resistance. You want to be colorful. You want to have all of your creativity showing. You want your red lipstick. You want to tell a big fuck you to the government that's trying to control every aspect of your life. Sorry, thirsty again. Oh my God. So, one thing that you can do, especially with knitting and crocheting or anything else that uses knots, that is not magic. When you are weaving, when you are knitting, when you are crocheting, you can include your intentions into every single stitch. That's true when you're sewing. Any kind of material arts, anything that you are doing, you can imbue with magic. That is so important to know. That is why witchcraft is political, always. You use the power of your emotions that drive you forward and make you act. That's the point of activism. I want to, good news. Good news. Liam is home. The little boy with the backpack and the bunny ears, the blue hat, he is home. He spent over 2 weeks in a Texas detention center where he was trafficked with his father from Minnesota. We know what this was. The judge ordered them home. The judge ordered them home. The judge said this was an abuse of power. This was torture of a child. And I'm so glad that a judge actually said those words and put them on paper for it to be recorded in history, because that is so fucking important right now. And I want to point out that Liam would not have come home so quick, if at all, were it not for the fact that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was able to come home. We collectively fought like hell to bring that man back. We fought like hell to bring home many other family members. And unfortunately, we do not get to save everybody. And I was reminded last night of something that my father said when he taught me that some story of the starfish on the beach, and a little girl is walking along the beach and she picks up a starfish and she tosses it back in the water so it doesn't die. And there's starfish just lined all along the beach. She's never going to get to every single one of them. An old man comes along and asks this little girl, "Why are you bothering? It doesn't make a difference. Look at all these starfish. You're never going to get to them all." She continues. She picks up another one. She throws. Mattered to that one. My dad told me that story when I was like 3 or 4. And I internalized it so much. So, yes, we have not gotten to everybody, and we will not get to everybody. But it matters that we are fighting for every single one, whether we get to them or not. Because it matters to the ones we do get out, that we do get to save in time. It matters to the mothers who get to hug their babies tonight because we fought for them and brought them home. Because we got loud and we didn't let our government get away with it. Keep doing that. Keep calling. Stay loud. Keep writing. Keep showing up to protests. Keep being obnoxious and sending postcards. All of these little things do matter. Talk about it with your coworkers. It matters. Talk about it with your friends, with your family, with strangers in line at the grocery store. These things do matter. This happened because we got loud and demanded oversight. If you want to make real change, one of the first steps you can do is get a list of all of the names of the concentration camps, the detention centers in your state, especially in your county, and go from there. Call your representatives and put pressure on them to oversee these centers. I have been calling my senators John Husted and Bernie Moreno for the last year, Max Miller for the last year, my stupid Ohio House reps for the last year, and nobody gives a crap. And I know that that feels hopeless. Keep doing it. Midterms are coming. They are going to be more willing to act right now because they want to be in your good graces come the midterms. We're not going to forget that they're the reason we're here in the first place. But they think we will. They think that they can salvage their reputations by going in and actually acting and doing their jobs in the last couple of months before the big election. So do your duty, call your representatives, demand oversight, look up the names, demand your representatives visit those detention centers. If you can physically go there yourself, do it. Protest outside of them. This stuff matters. Live stream it. It matters. This is how we bring these children and these people home, is by not shutting up about it. Do not shut up about it. Get louder about it. Because we can do it. We are doing it. On that note, I want to talk about what else matters. Black Lives Matter. And it is Black History Month. For the Witchy Librarian, I have 2 books. One for my child. I did not prepare to read this tonight, but this made me cry when I was reading it to my son. And he was like, "Mama, why are you crying?" And I'm like, "She just wants to be a kid." I cried. Real tears. I'm post-ovulation, so, the tears are flowing easily. I want to highlight in Black AF History, The Unwhitewashed Story of America by Michael Harriot. I want to highlight chapter 15 on page 354. The Race of Politics. Uncle Rob explains the two-party system. I'm trying to see how I want to hold this. So you're not getting all my info and stuff. How do I want to hold it? Fuck. Okay, it's fine. There we go. I'm just going to hold this. That's so better. Okay. Uncle Rob explains the two-party system. As you consume this collection of stories about the Black experience, you will invariably have questions. For instance, you might notice that for the first half of America's history, the Democrats were the bad guys who fought to uphold the institutions of slavery, Jim Crow, and legalized racial subjugation. Then, all of a sudden, the Democrats became the good guys. One of the favorite assertions of Candace Owens and other Black people who happily let white people touch their hair is that Negroes have been bamboozled by the Democratic Party. They often ask why the Democratic Party tends to get the Black vote by default. I'm sure you've heard some variation of this argument. With the false sense of superiority bestowed upon them by conservative Negro whisperers, they will say that Black voters are stuck on the Democratic plantation. They argue that Democrats started the Ku Klux Klan and supported segregation, while Republicans are the party of Lincoln, self-determination, and most of all, bootstraps. But how did it happen? It's actually a valid question. Until Carol Moseley Braun's election in 1992, every African American who served in the U.S. Senate belonged to the Republican Party. 21 Black men served in the House of Representatives as Republicans before a Black Democrat was elected. The Democratic Party, on the other hand, was, until the 1960s, the party of the South. It was the party of social conservatism. It wanted to preserve slavery and segregation. The party's Southern contingent generally opposed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. It was the party of states' rights, small government, and Jim Crow. They wouldn't even allow Black people to be present at their convention until 1924. So what happened? Why is it that 80% of Black voters have consistently identified as Democrat over the last 25 years, while the GOP electorate has been at least 80% white? Why hasn't a Republican presidential candidate won a majority of Black voters in 50 years? What happened to make America's two-party system so racially polarized? To show the evolution of the current two-party system, perhaps it would be useful to examine a few quotes from the important historical figures of our past. What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Uncle Rob. Mikey's in there looking through some books. He said something about finding some quotes from Black historical figures about voting, and you know what? I'm Black, and I was born in 1949, which makes me a historical figure. Plus, who knows more about politics than your favorite uncle? I don't know why that boy thinks you want to hear from some dudes in old black and white photographs instead of people who were actually affected by it. Then again, that boy reads too much. I bet he didn't tell you that he pronounced W.E.B. Du Bois' name as Dubois for years until I told him it's pronounced Du Bois. I blame his mama. She went to that uppity all-black boarding school and came back speaking fluent French. But you know what? But you know who can give you the real lowdown on the history of white politics? Moi. Before I was born, black voters were as likely to identify as Democrats as they were Republicans. In the South, it was a little different. Like many voters in the South, my mama my mama and them identified as Republicans because they said Southern Democrats were kind of racist. And when they said kind of racist, you got to keep in mind that Southern folk think the sun is kind of hot. Black folks in the South never say what they mean. Like when a black woman tells you that she has a trick for your ass, she's not about to teach you magic. Your best bet is to disappear like black folks did come from the Republican Party. And I heard you wanted to know why that happened. If I was writing a history book, I would start by explaining that Federalists, like Alexander Hamilton, wanted a strong central government, a national bank, and a federal army and navy. Democrat Republicans like Thomas Jefferson, on the other hand, who saw big government as a threat to their individual liberties, favored low taxes and a concept called states' rights. Mikey's probably told you that some gobbledygook about the dispute over the formation of a national bank, international policy, and national credit. But to understand the politics of baby America, all you have to know is one fact. White supremacy is the defining characteristic of America's politics. While other political, economic, and social issues have mattered more or less over the years, white supremacy has been the organizing principle of American politics before America ever existed. Of course, your raggedy history book will explain how the nation's first two political factions, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, was about representation, states' rights, and taxation, and not humanity or white supremacy. They'll say the Federalists wanted a strong federal government, a national army, and a central bank that handled the country's debts, while the Anti-Federalists favored states' rights, a weaker executive branch, and a government that wasn't dominated by New England merchants and northern aristocrats. But a lot of the beef was about slavery. Even though many Federalists owned slaves, Anti-Federalists were afraid that a strong federal government dominated by northern aristocrats could essentially ban the institution. They wanted their new nation to treat in the manner suggested by a more beloved group of men known as the Eiley brothers once suggested. It's your thing, do what you want to do. And so they compromised. Ultimately, the new Constitution of the United States of America actually told the states who to sock it to. After the founders signed away 2/5 of Black people's humanity in exchange for political expediency, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists formed into two parties. The Federalists became the Federalist Party. They were religiously puritanical, pro-big government, and strong in New England. The Anti-Federalists became the Democrat Republicans, a party that favored an agrarian economy, smaller government, and states retaining more rights. It is important to note that neither party was overly concerned with the abolition of slavery. Each had anti slavery factions, but aside from the New England states that had abolished slavery, the Democrat Republican Party dominated early American politics. By the election of 1824, the Federalist Party had collapsed, and the Democrat Republicans had splintered into two factions. Andrew Jackson actually won the popular vote in 1824 and had more electoral votes, but because none of the candidates, all of whom were Democrat Republicans, won a majority of electoral votes, the House of Representatives elected New Englander John Quincy Adams as president. After the corrupt bargain, Jackson desperately wanted a rematch against John Q., but Johnny was already the Democrat Republican nominee, so Jackson's homeboys from Tennessee took their horses down to Old Town Road and nominated him for president under the banner of the Jackson Party. When Jackson beat the brakes off John Quincy Adams in the rematch, Jackson's conservative pro slavery supporters created a political organization called the Democrats. At their inaugural convention in 1840, the Democratic Party adopted its first official platform, resolving that all efforts of the abolitionists or others made to induce Congress to interfere with questions of slavery have an inevitable tendency to diminish the happiness of the people and endanger the stability and permanency of the Union, and ought not to be countenanced by any friend of our political institutions. The Democrats' main platform centered around the concept of nullification, the idea that states had the right to invalidate laws they deemed unconstitutional. The idea that states had the right to invalidate laws. I just read the same line again. Of course, the only law they wanted to nullify was the one about owning human beings. Democrats thought the federal government should leave those decisions up to the states. In America, up to the states has always been code for we don't want anyone but white men to have rights. See slavery, see segregation, see voting rights, see abortion, see women's suffrage. It is true that the Republican Party was founded on the principles of anti slavery. Founded in 1854, the GOP's only real concern was stopping the expansion of owning men. Not for moral reasons, the pro slavery states' rights Democrats controlled the South, and the Republican Party didn't want their political and economic power to grow. They were so in favor of ending America's peculiar institution that members were often called Black Republicans as a slur. Ugh. Damn it. Bear with me, folks. I forgot to do the thing where my screen went black. There we go. I'm back. Okay. Where was I? And trust me, they weren't talking about Kanye West. Republicans also elected the first woman to Congress, supported Black suffrage, and pushed for civil rights legislations before Martin Luther King was born. The Civil War, in effect, was a clash over the evolution of America's two political parties, one that wanted the right to own men, and another that vehemently opposed the possession of human beings by others. In 1870, the United States ratified the 15th Amendment, declaring the rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Although most historians focus on the formerly enslaved Black voters in the South, before the 15th Amendment, states like New York and New Jersey forbade African Americans from voting. New York rescinded its ratification of the 15th when legislators realized Black people were included in the word citizens. After the Civil War, Black voters formed Union Leagues, secret advocacy groups that met in Black churches or schools to discuss civic and political issues. Aside from practicing a new popular dance called the electric slide, these leagues usually supported Republican candidates and encouraged millions of Black men to register to vote. Women were not yet allowed. After the Civil War, Mississippi's voting eligible population was suddenly majority Black, and the Black voter registration rate was more than 96.7%. The South's white minority couldn't stand it. After the Compromise of 1877 formally allowed the Democratic-controlled white minority to disenfranchise Black people, the state's Black voter registration dropped to less than 6% by 1892. This was why the highest turnout in the history of presidential politics happened in 1876, when Black voter suppression tactics were not yet enshrined into law. Of course, white Republicans began to get antsy about the growing Black majority ruling their party too. They eventually formed an all-white faction of the party, kind of like the modern-day Tea Party, but racist. Okay, just like the modern-day Tea Party. It's thirsty. In 1888, the Texan Norris Wright Cuney, a Black Republican, began to fight against white party leaders who wanted to use the Jim Crow laws to oust Black elected officials from the state convention, calling the faction the Lily White Movement, not to be confused with Lil White, a Caucasian soundclap rapper that I've never heard but am sure exists. By 1890, the Lily Whites had successfully created two factions of the Republican Party, distancing themselves from efforts to protect civil rights and joining Democrats to suppress black voters throughout the South. Meanwhile, a black and tan faction emerged because organized white supremacist violence helped the Lily Whites gain power. In the early 20th century, white Republicans often ran as Lily Whites in state and local elections, while black candidates ran under the black and tan banner. Composed of black voters and few white politicians who had not sided with white supremacy, the black and tan movement soon became a minority within the Southern GOP. In 1921, Richmond, Virginia's Maggie Lena Walker, the first black woman to open a bank, ran for state superintendent of schools under Virginia's Lily Black ticket with gubernatorial candidate John Mitchell Jr., who owned a bank in a section of Richmond known as Black Wall Street. The moguls issued the black and tan ticket partly to point out that the party's hypocrisy after Virginia's Republican Party banned blacks from attending the state convention. The Republican Party tried every imaginable tactic to lure Southern white voters to their side, even outlawing seasoned chicken at their conventions. A few whites joined the Southern GOP when William Taft's 1908 presidential campaign pushed his Southern policy promise to not appoint African Americans to federal jobs in areas where it would lead to racial conflict. When Democrat Woodrow Wilson won the election of 1912 on a promise of rolling back any gains African Americans had made since emancipation, Du Bois said, "It's no exaggeration to say that every enemy of the Negro race is greatly encouraged, that every man who dreams of making the Negro race a group of menials and pariahs is alert and hopeful." The dividing line in American politics was suddenly clear. The party that won the votes of conservative white racists would win the South and Midwest. African American voters overwhelmingly supported Franklin Roosevelt's four presidential campaigns in 1932, 36, 40, and 44. But for other contests, as many blacks identified as Republican as Democrat. Then in 1948, disgusted with Democrat Harry Truman's order to desegregate the U.S. Army and the Democratic Party's support for anti-Jim Crow laws, 35 delegates from the Deep South walked out of the Democratic National Convention and formed the States' Rights Democratic Party, Dixiecrats. Black voters flocked to the Democratic Party. To be clear, black people didn't switch parties. Their votes had always been split between two political factions. They just stopped voting for Republicans. Indeed, they had a trick for the racist Republicans' collective ass. But as St. Jerome said in the Bible, white people going white. It's the third chapter. Oh, I can't say that one. It's the third chapter of Elations, and word elations, one of the lesser books. It was too funny not to share, but I can't say the word. Whoo, okay. For the most part, Southern whites kept voting for Democrats, and Republicans couldn't get a foothold in the South. Republican Dwight Eisenhower won everywhere but the Solid South in 52 and 56. Then, in September 1957, Eisenhower sent federal troops into Arkansas to enforce the desegregation of Little Rock Central High School. In 1963, John F. Kennedy, a Democrat, broke with the party ideology and used Eisenhower's playbook to send in the white stormtroopers, the Alabama National Guard, to force desegregation at the University of Alabama. Then came the breaking point that would basically change the party affiliation of Southern voters. Shortly before the election of 1964, Democrat Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act. Aside from Jimmy Carter in 1976, the Solid South would never vote for a Democratic president again. Those good old Republicans who never read a white lie they didn't like would like you to believe that Republicans supported the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Democrats opposed it, which is only partially true. To understand the change in both parties' ideology, all one has to do is count the votes. There were 94 Southern Democrats in the House of Representatives. 8 voted for the bill. There were 11 Southern Republicans in the House of Representatives. 0 voted for the bill. The Northern House Democrats voted in favor of the bill 145 to 9. The Northern House Republicans favored the bill 138 to 24. Of the 21 Southern senators, Democrat or Republican, only 1 voted in favor of the Civil Rights Act, a Texas Democrat. As you can see, it wasn't the Democrats who opposed the Civil Rights Act and the Republicans favored it. Everyone supported the Civil Rights Act, except representatives from the South. Southern, po- uh, Southern politicians from both parties voted against the legislation. And even further, every poll for the era shows that Southern whites opposed the law. The Civil Rights Act was signed on July 2nd, 1964. In the presidential elections of that year, 94% of non white voters voted for Democratic candidate Lyndon Johnson, boosting him to win over Barry Goldwater. But Goldwater, a Republican, managed to win 5 Southern states in that election, which was unheard of for a Republican. How did Goldwater do that? He won those states by opposing the Civil Rights Act. He knew that a majority of white Southerners felt Negro right groups were asking for too much on civil rights. Oh my God. While the rest of the country felt the groups were asking for about what they should. And just before the election, his vice presidential running mate and Republican National Committee chairman, William E. Miller, gave a speech warning America that the civil rights protests were the payoff of the soft, on crime, society is to blame breed. Breed. I haven't heard anything as racist as breed until 40 years later when I was called a didn't do, as in when the police arrest black guys, they always say, I didn't do nothing. Saying what you will about Republicans, but they are inventive when it comes to euphemisms for the N word. In 1968, Strom Thurmond teamed up with Richard Nixon, the 1968 Republican presidential candidate who was convinced that a Republican could win the South if he was willing to dog whistle racism to the Southern voters. Along with H.R. Haldeman, they developed the Southern Strategy by emphasizing Nixon's belief that the whole problem is really the blacks. The key is to devise a system that recognizes this while not appearing to. Nixon won the 1968 election by carrying 7 former Confederate states, a remarkable feat for a Republican. In his 1972 reelection, he doubled down on the racist rhetoric and won every single state in the South. Since that election, only Jimmy Carter won a majority of the old Confederate states formerly known as the Solid South. The old Confederate states fused into a Republican voting bloc few Democrats have been able to penetrate. In 1981, Lee Atwater, the political campaign architect who refined the Southern strategy for Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, described the Republican Party's winning template. You start out in 1954 by saying N-word, N-word, N-word. By 1968, you can't say N-word. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract. Now you're talking about cutting taxes. And all these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And a byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. We want to cut this is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than N-word, N-word. On August 3rd, 1980, a new Republican presidential hopeful was searching for a spot to make a big political statement. Instead of speaking in his home state of California, he chose a place that was sure to rile up his base of angry white Southern supporters. The Neshoba County Fair in Philadelphia, Mississippi, which happened to be the site of Emmett Till's murder. In 1964, when members of the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan abducted and murdered James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner, Klan organizer Edgar Ray Killen was arrested and charged with the murders. But his first trial ended in a hung jury. On August 4th, 1964, 44 days after they disappeared, authorities found the bodies buried in a dam on the Old Jolly Farm, a stone's throw from the open field where Reagan chose to give his speech. As the mostly white crowd that included members of the Klan looked on, Reagan gave a 33-paragraph, dog whistle-filled speech about the dangers of welfare and outsiders to a rousing round of applause. That man knew what he was doing by conjuring up the worst elements of whiteness. He believed that he could employ the Southern strategy and cement the South as Republican territory. More than 15,000 people showed up. I'm not saying this was racist, because I don't have to. I believe in states' rights, explained the man who had become the conservative Beyoncé, and I believe that we've distorted the balance of our government today by giving powers that were never intended in the Constitution to that federal establishment. And if I do get the job I'm looking for, I'm going to devote myself to trying to reorder those priorities and to restore the states and local communities those functions which properly belong there. The states' rights speech would become part of political history. 3 months later, that candidate, Ronald Reagan, enjoyed one of the biggest presidential landslides in American history, completing his party's century long switcheroo. In the 2020 presidential election, Republicans won 70% of white voters in the former Confederate states. The GOP is like a black cookout, a whole lot of whiting. Oh, Mikey's back. I guess he can take it from here. Wait, did my Uncle Rob just hijack my book again? I bet he told you about the lily whites, didn't he? Did he make the fedora joke? Please don't tell me he made the fish fry joke. Oh man, I'm sorry. It could be worse. He could have told you what dindu means. Aside from the jokes from 1979, Uncle Rob is right. Republicans are now the party of the alt-right. It is the party of economic anxiety and birtherism. It is the party of Donald Trump, the Muslim ban, the border wall, David Duke, and all the white supremacists running for election on the Republican ticket in the 2022 midterms and beyond. Republican leaders now spout white supremacist theories, asking what non-whites have done for civilization. They appeal to Islamophobia and its anti-immigrant base by repeating rhetoric that has no basis in fact. They rally right-wing support under the guise of patriots and American values. It is the party of white people. And lest one think the Democrats have emerged as anti-racist heroes, they are not so much for Black people as they are the opposition party for the GOP. Since the Civil Rights Act, 98% of the Democratic senators and 82% of the men and women appointed to the federal judiciary have been white. Democrats have never elected a Black Speaker of the House or Senate Majority Leader. While its base is inarguably more diverse, the Democratic Party is still run by the brand of white men who compromise 2/5 of Black people's humanity for the sake of national unity. No, the GOP is not more racist than the Democratic Party. A party is just a name and a logo. There has always been a party that served as the home for white supremacy, and the Republican Party is just the current base. You can call it the Democratic, Republican, Conservative, or MAGA, but among Southern whites, there ain't but one party, the anti-Black Party. So while future history books might one day credit Sean Puffy P. Diddy Puff Daddy Brother Love Combs with convincing people to wear bleached linen outfits to shindigs, oh, America is the originator of the white party. The country has always had a two-party political system: white people and everyone else. Until the presidential election of 1948, the Democratic Party was the party of Jim Crow, segregation, and the Ku Klux Klan. In all the presidential elections between 1880 and 1947, Herbert Hoover, who ran against Catholic New York Democrat Al Smith, was the only Republican to win more than 3 of the southern slaveholding states, which included Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia, more commonly known as the Sweet Tea States. But this doesn't mean the Republican Party was welcoming to Black voters. The Dixiecrats selected Strom Thurmond, who was only 46 years old at the time, as their presidential candidate and based their new party's platform on segregation. In the 1948 presidential election, the Dixiecrat Party's platform of strict segregation won 4 southern states and placed second in a fifth, ending the solidly Democratic South. But something interesting happened. In 1964, Republicans nominated Barry Goldwater, an Arizona senator and GOP chairman who showed his adherence to white supremacy by voting against the Civil Rights Act. Goldwater chose New York Congressman William E. Miller for a running mate, who warned against Democratic candidates being soft on crime, a reference to civil rights protesters staging demonstrations in cities across the country. The tactic didn't win the election, but the party of Lincoln made significant inroads for the South for the first time since the Civil War. Not only were the pro-segregationist states the only states they won, but literally, to this day, the Democratic Party has never regained control of the South. Since then, every Republican president has gone all in on the Southern strategy by dog whistling to white voters. Richard Nixon promised a war on crime to keep the blacks in line. Ronald Reagan proved he wasn't soft on crime by doubling the prison population during his time in office. Maybe the most famous soft on crime ad was George H.W. Bush's racist Willie Horton ad, or the time he pulled crack cocaine out in the Oval Office to explain why we need more prisons. While that might sound like I'm calling these presidents racist, I'm not. We don't know what's in the hearts and minds of politicians. We can only judge them by what they do. And just as they demonize civil rights protesters by connecting them to crime, right-wing conservatives continue to weaponize white fear as a cattle prod to herd white voters under the GOP tent. After Reagan manufactured the source of non-existent welfare queens, George H.W. Bush ramped up mass incarceration and the war on drugs to protect the American people from the coming horde of Negro crack babies, despite the fact that 3 times as many whites had ever used crack as blacks. In the 1990s, Newt Gingrich updated the Republican Party's anti-black rhetoric by convincing Middle America that political correctness was going to make their bigotry illegal, and affirmative action would steal their jobs. 3 decades later, fentanyl, Mexican caravans, Colin Kaepernick, CRT, cancel culture, and the woke mob have replaced crack babies, communist protesters, black power, secret Marxist protesters, and political correctness. But none of these things proves that the Republican Party is racist. They prove that America is racist. Over time, these racial dog whistles and culture wars have proven themselves as effective political techniques. Republicans couldn't win elections consistently if these bigoted ideas weren't shared by a majority of white America. It is entirely possible that Republican politicians aren't racist. It is not reasonable to believe that most white people are not. But just like the slaveholding declarers of independence and the white nationalists who started an uncivil race war, and the Reconstruction era terrorists and the white women who advocated for the necessity of lynching, and the segregationists and the mass incarcerators and the vote suppressors and the election-denying insurrectionists who just wanted to make America great again, they will deny that white supremacy is their ultimate goal. But their votes show it. The success of politicians who openly espouse the premises of white supremacy shows it. This country's history shows it. The ones who claim they want to make America great again have never lifted a finger to transform this make-believe democracy into a more perfect union. They didn't do nothing. So, I think this is a very powerful book. And you should listen to it on the audiobook if you don't want to. Ooh. You should listen to the audiobook if you don't want to or don't have the time to sit and read it. But it is definitely powerful. My screen went dark again. There we go. Okay, that was a lot longer than I anticipated, but that's okay because I really wanted to get that out there. I highly recommend this book. Please do yourself a favor, read it, listen to it. It's worth it. Trigger warnings, content warnings. There's some difficult things in here. No worse than what's in the Epstein files. The part that really got me in my son's book tonight when I was reading The Interpreter, words by Olivia Abtahi and pictures by Monica Arnaldo. It's about this little girl. She's constantly translating for her parents, and her teacher asks her how she's doing. And she says to her parents, ¿Cómo están? No, Cecilia. I asked you, how are you doing? How am I doing? Mija, are you okay? Cecilia couldn't take it anymore. She was done being a professional. And this is the part that had me crying. It has it both in the Spanish and the English. Mami, papi, no quiero hacer recados cada día y esperar en el DMV. Quiero estar afuera, quiero jugar fútbol, quiero bailar y pintar y comer helado y hablar en inglés y español cuando quiera. Quiero. Mom, Dad, I don't want to run errands every day and wait at the DMV. I want to be outside. I want to play soccer. I want to dance and paint and eat ice cream and speak English and Spanish whenever I want. I want. It broke me. And I did a great job. And she has a wonderful family. It's beautiful. Some kids have one job, to be a kid. Cecilia has two. So yeah, I cried. Those are my 2 recommendations for the Witchy Librarian this week. Finally, we are moving on to Is He Dead Yet? And I'll be using my Crow Tarot. Let him eat crow. Am I right? Okay. Consider this Donald Trump's reading for the week, I guess. Have y'all seen how sick he is? He is so sick. Like, I'm going to be so surprised if he genuinely makes it past Valentine's Day. Like, he looks like he's going to die any moment now. Hiding his hands now with a glove. We all saw it. The Epstein files are released. They're coming released. Not all of them are released. Continue to call your representatives. The DOJ is still in contempt. Okay, there we go. So, let's find out. How's your week going, big guy? I will be so shocked. Every day I keep thinking, we're one day closer. We're one day closer. We're one day closer. Too many, but this one came up right. Oh, the 5 of Cups reversed. This is typically about loss. He is not doing well, that's for sure. Sorry about the silence. Concentrating. Okay. What fell is death. What came up is the Page of Pentacles reversed. So I'm going to take these as his cards of the week, as the beginning, middle, and end of the week. And I'm also going to pull one card, which is the advice card for us, the audience. So what should we know for this week? Okay. I shall accept you. The Page of Swords reversed is our advice card. So let's start with the 5 of Cups reversed. Okay. Upright. The crow of the 5 of Cups stands on a riverbank, consumed with loss and unable to find a path out of despair. Because his focus is directed only on what he has lost, he is unable to see the riches in his life. The 5 of Cups suggests that you move away from the mindset of lack and look for areas in your life that are positive. The message of the 5 of Cups: replace feelings of scarcity with gratitude. When the Five of Cups appears reversed, it is a sign that you are learning from past losses and are ready to move forward. The ability to learn from the past mistakes will enable you to see a path to acceptance. He is obviously not capable of learning from his mistakes. He has dementia. So I'm wondering if he is reliving his past mistakes. So that's the beginning of the week. The middle of the week, the Death card. Number 13. Change, ending, new beginning, transformation, mortality, element water. The crow has let go and made peace with the change that must take place for her life to move forward in a positive direction. Her death is symbolic of transformation and comes with a warning. Unless you are willing to sacrifice the part of you that is holding you back, you will feel pain or discomfort in the future. This card makes a profound change. This card marks a profound change coming, one that has the possibility of creating a positive outcome if you can allow the change to happen without fear of the unknown. So, is he dead yet? Almost. End of the week, we have the Page of Pentacles reversed. Oh my God. First, upright. In the abundant, lush garden, the Page of Pentacles sits on a flowering branch. She allows the energy of blossoming life to enter her spirit as she gazes into the pentacle. Envisioning the path she wishes to travel, she holds in her mind's eye a clear vision for what she wants to manifest. The Page of Pentacles' message is that to achieve the success you want, you'll need to spend time developing a clear view and preparing for where the road may lead. With this skill, you will be able to achieve your desire, and this is where the magic happens. When reversed, the Page of Pentacles may manifest in the form of blockage. A heart blockage? Take the Page of Pentacles in the reverse position as a warning. It's time to ask yourself if your enthusiasm has waned. Or does your desire require more dedication than you are willing to give? His life force is waning this week. Then we have the Page of Swords. And this is our advice card, right? The young crow uses his strength and stamina to carry the sword through an intense energy storm. Along the way, he may have lost a few feathers, but it was a small price to pay for a chance at something more significant. The page has found his stride and approaches the goal with steady and relentless determination. The Page of Swords arrives with a message to throw caution to the wind, get out there and fly. The time is now to take action. The page denotes movement, energy, and communication, all of which are essential for embarking on a new adventure. The Page of Swords reversed represents a person who talks a big game, but doesn't have the experience to back it up. The card reversed may also warn of jumping in too hastily without proper research, and as a result, wasting energy. What I am getting from this advice card for us, the people, is not to waste our time with panic rhetoric. This is why I am not entertaining people who are like, oh, you think there's going to be a midterms? You think there's going to be elections? Fucking stop it. We just had elections. We're going to have more. Stop it. I'm not going to entertain doomsday sayers because we are the people who decide what happens next. And if you are wasting your energy on, oh my God, martial law, you are part of the problem. Get out of the way. Let the adults handle this and you can go panic in a corner by yourself. Stop spreading your panic for no reason. That's what this card is saying. Either weather the storm and act or get the fuck out the way because you're just underfoot. As far as Donald Trump is concerned, beginning of the week, he's starting to feel a lack of a draining energy. Middle of the week, he may accept that he's on his way out. And at the end of the week, he's really going to be facing that powerful letdown, that powerful lack of energy that's going to see him on his way out. And we cannot panic. We must take action. Those are my cards for the week. And I will be posting my monthly tarot reading and my cards of the day on Substack probably tomorrow. I will do my best to get the monthly one out tonight, but no guarantees. I'll at least try to get it typed. Okie dokies. Do. Finally, next week on the What Up Witches podcast, it will be me and Ellie. Not just me this time. This was a last minute change of plans, and I didn't want to disappoint anybody by not showing up after I promoted it all day long on all the platforms. So here I am. I hope you enjoyed just me tonight, but next time it will be us. I will keep you guys updated whenever we figure out a day that works for us both. In the meantime, follow us everywhere. We have a link tree. I created an upscrolled. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Hate Meta, but we're there. Knitting Cult Lady followed us on Instagram, and I about freaked out. It was so I'm still laughing because of course she follows a platform where we had like 10 followers at the time, and not the platform where we had like 800 followers. But whatever, it's fine. So yeah, you go over to Instagram or any of our platforms, you can find us under the What Up Witches tag. Thank you for listening. And remember, wait, what is my fucking tagline again? I already forgot it. I do this every time, don't I? Now I have to go in and look and see what my stupid thing is. Okay, there we go. So it is just me right now. That's why I'm so crazy. So we will see you next week. I'm Kitty. Thank you for joining me on the What Up Witches podcast. Stay magical, keep being a menace, blessed or hexed.